The Educational Design Crisis of the Century by Educatoinal. So my claim is, and what I will argue, are that the values of education have been misled and are dying. This stems from our failing educational system. I will be addressing Mark Peterson, Public Relations for the Utah Board of Education. I chose Mark because I wanted to target a more local audience at the state level, and which would, in hopes, change at the federal level. And, who else better than the public relations guy who can help me get my message to the right person? So, starting point is a system designed for the 19th century. Our current educational design system was designed for the 19th century machine era, while we are well into the 21st century of the knowledge area. An example of this would be that our classrooms are modeled after the factory assembly line, which was crucial in the machine era when we were doing a lot more labor jobs. An everyday classroom is going to have seats where students sit down and they're going to be lectured and fed information and concepts on what I like to call basically the conveyor belt of knowledge, which makes it very hard for students like myself to retain the information. We can't just simply send a student down an assembly line and piece them together one by one. Education has been a national crisis since 1983. This was shocking to most Americans in 1983 when test scores came back at an all-time low. And following this realization, some legislature was passed in order to repair this failed education, and it was called the year 2000. And the year 2000 promised that by 2000, our educational system and numbers would be light years ahead and be regarded as world-class educational system. As you can tell, we are now in the year 2019 and still drag and struggle with our educational system. Graduation rates still continue to decline, and college admissions still continue to be dominated by foreign students. The problem still remains in our classrooms. Banathy states that our classrooms are set up for the machine era of the past, while we are currently in the fast-paced knowledge era. Our nation has reached a juncture. Banathy is very crucial in helping us with this realization. He goes into great detail about this 1983 realization and the fact that not much has changed since then. This leads me to my next topic, which is a false value in education. There are several things which have led the average United States student to have a false sense of value in education. One of the leading culprits in this is our grading system, specifically the grade point average, GPA, which has led to a national crisis and stunted the learning process in its organic form. GPA is great for a measurement, but has led students to only care about that, which is very frustrating. And for example, a student sits down in a classroom, learns a concept, goes home, takes an assignment with them, does the assignment, comes back, tests, and say they get an 80%, a B. That sounds, pretty good to the average student. And then moves on to the next concept. Well, let's put it in this terms. Say you hire a contractor to build your foundation for a home. They come over, they build 80% of the foundation. A few weeks later, you're going to find your home in crumbles. This is much like what has happened with the average student in the United States. Is we build on these concepts without correcting them completely. And the only reason why anybody cares about actually learning the concept is because of this grade point average, which is so strongly correlated to college admissions. That's why kids fight so hard to, cheat and boost their GPA in any way possible without learning the proper knowledge. And they frankly go into college, ill prepared and failing as a student. Another major concern that dates back, like I said, to 1983 is failing test scores. D. Silver explains that the Program for International Student Assessment, which is a test that every 3 years measures reading ability, math, and science literacy, results from the most recent assessment showed that U.S. placed an unimpressive 38th out of 71 countries in math and 24th in science. If you do the math, that comes out to roughly 51% math and 33% in science. And this is in developing and developed countries against all of our competitors in testing. It shows a clear problem with education in the U.S. and what it has come to. We're subpar in everything, and we don't even have a passing grade in those categories. So all this information is useful, but it also begs the question that if this is a problem or not. One can argue that the U.S. is one of the few countries to bring public education to every child. And it can be stated that alone makes us one of the best countries in the world. Another thing that can be argued is that tests are inaccurate. A lot of our competing countries don't always account for rural children, disabled children, kids with autism and Down syndrome, and the U.S. actually accounts for all of those students. And given that the No Child Left Behind initiative is very impressive, the U.S. has also failed in bringing up that standard. Mediocrity alone will not fix our problems or keep us above our competition and innovation. Knowledge is the number one thing that drives our society. Innovation and learning is what keeps us going and is the keystone in the United States. We are no longer leaders or even competing. We have fallen far behind in that, and even though our public education system is notable, there's lots of work to be done, and these claims are just simply not sufficient enough to okay the problem. Lots of people claim that far-right policymakers are trying to convince that the United States educational system is failing. But I think that, as you can tell, given the numbers, it is in fact true that we are failing, and doing worse than failing. 33% is not okay. This is my reference page from Bhanathi, De Silva, Singer, and Srinivasan. I just like to close up with a few of my own comments as far as how I take this topic. I think it's something that's a pressing issue in the United States. Like I said before, it's been a crisis since 1983 and will continue to be a crisis until we change what the actual problem is. And the actual problem is the educational design system of our country. As you can see, the repercussions of this are failing test scores and our false value in education. All of that can be corrected with a few simple things in the way we learn and the way we teach and the way information is brought to the child. But it just takes an initiative and the right message and talking to the right people. That's why I've decided to contact Utah Board of Education in hopes that a change at the state level will spark an interest in the federal level, where we can then start making some some serious changes and policy changes for the United States and hope for a better tomorrow. Thanks so much for listening. That is my presentation.